Hi, welcome to the Also Called podcast, where we're asking hard questions about our place in this hectic world.
Join us as we dig into the truth about who God is, possibly discovering that we are also called.
Hi, welcome to the Also Called podcast. We're continuing to learn more about who the disciple Mary of Bethany was, her cultural challenges, and her opportunity to work through some of the tough feelings with Jesus. We're exploring the lessons from her life, ministry, and deep love for Jesus, considering what they offer us today. Today, we're looking at the psychology and neurology of Mary with our guest, Dr. Trudy Johnson. So get ready for the journey into the heart of a faithful follower. Welcome, Dr. Trudy. We're going to have you introduce yourself to everyone.
Andrea, yes, thanks for having me here. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist, been doing that almost 20 years. Started out in marriage counseling and therapies, but I have switched basically to a lot of trauma work because I started discovering in marriages how traumatized people were. They literally, couples have PTSD of each other practically because that's bouncing on a lot of woundedness from their past. I'm really focusing now more on the trauma aspect and really enjoying my work now and part-time-ish also so that I can spend some time with my husband and my grandchildren, just enjoying life and doing what God says when it's time to do it.
Thank you so much. And what drew you to being a part of the Other Disciples project?
Yes, Andrea, well, there were two things. First of all, I love the subject, and I love that women need to understand how involved Jesus was with women, when he actually chose women and besides men. And so I just love the topic and love the discussion of it all. And then secondly, knowing that Mia was involved in this project, I had no worries that it wouldn't be an awesome project. She's a very diligent, hard worker. I trust her. So part of it was just because Mia came to me and suggested this topic. And I just thought, yes, if Mia's going to do it, yay, I'm jumping on board.
You're so amazing. Thank you. That means a lot.
Okay, Mia, so you actually were the author of this chapter. So can you introduce our listeners to Mary and what she was struggling with?
Sure. So a real quick recap. Mary is Martha of Bethany's sister and Lazarus's sister. And the situation that we'll be specifically looking at today is her response to her brother's death, her anger or disillusionment or disappointment. We don't really know what it is, but we can conject because we know what we would do in that situation. We would be extremely disappointed that we called Jesus and he did not respond for 3 days. He gets there and she is not there. She's still at home, and he sends Martha to the house and says, "Bring Mary here." And she has a choice. She can either stay bitter and angry and stay at home, or she can go. And so today we're going to talk about those feelings.
So, Dr. Trudy, what drew you to writing about Mary of Bethany?
You want my honest answer?
Absolutely.
I've always been envious of Mary because I am a Martha. And I'm like, why does she get to be so great and perfect when if you don't have food, how it's the event is just not going to work. Just jokingly, I liked looking at Mary from the perspective as she isn't that perfect Christian person that I've always thought in my mind, if I could only be like her. But I'm really afraid if Jesus were in the next room, I would be in there washing the dishes. I'm like, why can't I get over this? So I liked looking at Mary's flawedness, which sounds a little weird, but it was an interesting take.
I think that has been our experience through this whole project is we have these people on pedestals, and the more you really look, they're not perfect. And I don't think that God or them ever intended for us to look at them that way. These are their stories of interacting with God. So I can totally relate to what you're saying. What did you enjoy most about the writing, or what did you relate to most in her story?
It was good to look at her disappointment and how she handled that. She, of course, did handle it in a perfect way, as Mary would do. The Lord, in His wisdom, lets us realize we're not always going to do it perfect. And as human beings on this earth, we're going to be disappointed even in Him. So I just enjoyed looking at it from that perspective.
So, Dr. Trudy, tell us about anger and disappointment. What is anger?
So I can give you the good old APA, American Dictionary of Psychology. Anger is an emotion characterized by tension and hostility arising from frustration, real or imagined, by another's behavior. So basically, anger is about what other people are doing. And I like to look at it as in three different aspects. Anger is about hurt. I call it hin. It's about hurt. Somebody hurt me, or expectations. I was expecting something and then that didn't happen. Or in is for needs. I had a certain need and that didn't get met. So anger really is a secondary emotion. It's not really, because people tell me I'm so angry. I'm like, no, you're not. You're really a bunch of other things. So anger is a combination of many different emotions. Typically, it's a secondary emotion. It's not really happening, but it's about being hurt, expecting something that didn't happen, or when you're having a need. So there's, all the way from indignation. I'm just kind of a little ticked off, or I'd have wrath. I'm really, really upset. There's even pressed down anger, which is really basically we're not going to show it. It's pressed down, and that's going to come out as depression. So anger is a lot of different emotions, all combined into one big ball that really steals our peace.
I absolutely love that. I'm gonna add that into my toolbox. But I mean, I spent years being angry. I heard someone else say being seen, heard, and understood. And that's a lot of it comes back to communication. And I guess, that now that I'm talking through it, that probably even added more to the potential for her to be angry because she had this close relationship with Jesus and she did communicate her need. I need you to come take care of this. My brother's sick. And then he didn't show up.
My aunt is a therapist, and she always says that anger is actually fear. She said there's two primary underlying things, fear and love. And she said it falls under fear. And I really kind of like that definition because I'm not comfortable with anger at all. I mean, in myself or in other people. So I'm learning to be comfortable with that because it's natural. We all get angry. So, but it really has helped to like process it through that. I'm angry, but I'm afraid. And I love what we had talked about in Daughter's episode, that a lot of the fear is fear of shame. What are your thoughts as far as, those primary emotions that anger is a secondary to?
Well, when we think about it, it's such a universal emotion, and we have it. I believe we have it so categorized in our culture where we actually give people permission to be angry. They're just an angry person. Oh, they're just frustrated all the time. But it's really more than that. Under that anger is a lot of fear that I'm not going to be heard. I'm not going to be listened to. And so probably that means that that's happened in the past and it's very hurtful. And so it's really about, do I exist or not? Am I really even a person? And so that can really point to a lot of fear.
So, how is fear different than disappointment?
Disappointment, it's hard to imagine, but we have a lot more control over disappointment. Fear might be, it's going to be, since it's the kind of a primal emotion, that's going to really quickly pull in that sympathetic nervous system to cause us to fight, flight, or numb, freeze. However, disappointment, believe it or not, is something we have more of a choice over because it's really about we're expecting some sort of result. So that's the expectation. I'm expecting someone to see me. I'm expecting someone to answer a certain way. And then when they don't deliver, we get disappointed and then we get fearful. There goes the anger that we're not seeing. So if someone disappoints us, we have more control over that because we have no ability, believe it or not, to read minds. And maybe that person doesn't even realize here's the answer you're needing. If we're disappointed a lot, it could be we're doing a lot of magical thinking, expecting people to respond a certain way. So I kind of look at it to try to lower expectations for others and give them some grace so that I'm not pulled in and my piece is upset because they might not have even realized what they just did.
What is it? An unexpressed expectation is a future argument.
There you go. Yes.
Those expectations, man, they derail us.
And we all expect the really high end of everything to be loved, to matter, to be important, to always be noticed. And everybody's doing it. And in the meantime, it's not happening for any of us.
Some cases, a lot of cases, we're expecting ourselves out of other people. And so we get frustrated and angry when they don't show up like we feel like we would show up. Or then you also have the other people who you just expect people to show up and there's no reciprocation. So
That's exactly what I was going to talk about, the reciprocation. It seems like we give and give and give and don't get back sometimes.
That will make us very sad. And then here we are back to shame. Then we feel like, oh, something's wrong with me.
So, Dr. Trudy, we were talking a little bit about autonomic response, the fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. Can you tell us the physiology of anger and what's going on in our bodies when we're feeling that?
Anger is the biggest emotion that it's at the top of the list for the toxicity that can happen in our bodies when we feel angry. I believe that's why God called this one emotion out, and he gives us permission to be angry, but he's like, don't stay there. It's actually going to hurt your own body. So it's a big emotion. What happens is there's a real chemical process that occurs when that stress response. So mind is going, danger, danger, we're not okay. Well, then body's going to kick in with that stress response. And it's just a cascade of hormones and chemicals. It's a fascinating process, but we aren't aware of what's happening. But the amygdala kicks in. It gets what I call hijacked. Amygdala is that little walnut-shaped gland right in the center of the brain, and it's in charge. It's like the motherboard. It's the switchboard for all of our emotions. And so when that gets hijacked, you could just imagine it on fire. And then we're not actually aware, but our adrenaline system kicks in, raises our blood pressure because our blood vessels are constricting. That increases our heart rate. And then we got to pour some cortisol in there. Cortisol is like acid, causes huge inflammation. So this elevated cortisol level causes the body to retain sodium. That increases the blood pressure. And then up goes my cholesterol, and then that high blood pressure can even cause the brain vessels to constrict. So now I'm going to have a migraine or a headache. So that surge of cortisol, again, is you're just putting inflammation in your body so it can change. Then we've got the whole digestive system that's impacted with heartburn and indigestion. So it's just important to know anger. That's why God is saying the one emotion that he's giving us permission to have, he actually names it, but he just says, don't keep this in your body. They say having anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. So it just causes so much trouble to our physical state.
Absolutely. I know there have been a couple of times in my life that I've been so angry that I actually don't even remember the incident, like what happened in between, because it just feels like you're blind. You see red. So I get that term. So being angry is natural. It happens. It's probably going to happen again. What do we do with it when we're in that state?
Well, again, we've got to make some space. We've got to actually, it's been proven like even 5 to 10 seconds of space will keep that sympathetic nervous system from kicking in. And so that's going to happen with deep breath. So you can count on deep breath always to make the space. And then we can just say, what just happened? Was I hurt? Was I disappointed? Was there an expectation there? Is there fear there? We can just kind of go through a triage of identifying emotions to realize what just happened. And then we can also say, when in the past have I felt like this? What is this kicking on? What is this jarring loose from my past where I felt very powerless and hopeless and I didn't have a way out? We have more control over anger but to realize if you have an anger problem, please no, don't feel shame about it. Just know it's the red light on the dashboard of your car. And God is saying, let's don't do this. It's hurting your body and it's hurting you actually more than the other person probably. Yeah, just to take a space, take a deep breath. In that time, actually it takes 20 minutes for your amygdala to stop firing. So you need at least 20 minutes deep breath. What just happened here? Lord, help me come into this place. I can't do this myself. So there's always all sorts of ways to talk us down off the cliff from going into that rageful state.
I think about the time it must have been between when Martha shows up at home to bring Mary to the tomb. She had that however long, 20 minutes or more, to calm down or to like really separate from her emotions. So it's neat that, you saying that reminds me that there was a gap of time between when we see her at home and when she gets to the tomb to talk to Jesus and she just sinks at his feet. I think she finally identified, I'm actually sad or afraid or whatever her other primary emotion was. And she just sank to his feet and said, I'm going to keep you in your proper place as God, and I'll keep myself in my proper place as deciding to be submitted to that.
And also the walking aspect of it too. Like that's another tool, not just the time that we need for our logical brain to come back online. Walking helps us to process emotions as well.
Yes, moving our bodies, anything to move our bodies we want to somehow interfere, disrupt that sympathetic nervous system from jumping in because it's so automatic and God gives us to us to keep us safe. But just moving our bodies, walking, getting that energy out in that way, and that helps get that amygdala back down to calm.
Thank you so much. As we're looking at her story as a whole and how she responded to Jesus, how do you think her story applies to our audience? And what do you want our listeners to take away?
Oh my goodness, I believe Mia said it perfectly in that, first of all, to have permission to, yes, this hurt. God doesn't want us just to say, oh, nothing happened, it doesn't hurt. No, he says be angry. So we have permission to say, wow, that hurt. Wow, I was expecting something else and that got me out of left field. So it's okay to recognize that really hurt deep. But that's a beautiful picture of how Mary just took some time and then she got herself settled down and then went back into intimacy with Jesus. And that's where she put her eyes and her heart. And he's so good to just say, wow, I know that hurt, but it's okay. I'm here. And so just to let him come in and calm us, I believe is the answer.
That's so good. And it's so totally a detail that I missed. Dr. Trudy, do you want to give us a quick summary of Mary and what you learned from her?
I love that Mary wasn't perfect. I feel better about her now. And I love, honestly, I think it's just Mary's demeanor, Mary, everything in my first walk with the Lord. I couldn't get there of moving out of that being so task oriented and being more heart oriented. So that's what I love about her. And I loved remembering that even in her disappointment and how hurtful that must have been. She was expecting Jesus to be there. He had all the answers. And so to just see her humanity in it all was a wonderful reminder that we're all in a mess and we all need a savior.
Absolutely.
Dr. Trudy, I love you encourage us to acknowledge what we're feeling and working through that. And We see this interaction between Mary and Jesus. She does see him as the Messiah, but it's also someone that she was living life with. But we can also today apply that in our relationship with God because he can handle those big emotions. I have spent so much time like a toddler throwing a fit on the grocery store floor because I'm not happy with the situation that I'm in, whether I feel like I put myself there or if I felt like I'm a victim of circumstances of someone else's sinful behavior. So I just want to encourage our listeners that God can handle it. And it's better to work through that with him and tell him, God, I'm angry about this. I don't understand. Help me understand that.
Thank you so much, Dr. Trudy, for your time and your energy and all of the amazing things that you've taught us and showed us about anger. And we just thank you all for joining us. We'd love to hear your thoughts on Mary. So drop us a line in the comments or for a larger conversation on social media. Our links are down below in the show notes. So join us next time as we dive into women disciples we explore in our book, The Other Disciples, with Salome, a woman who had a big, audacious ask of Jesus with a bit of historical controversy surrounding her motives. Salome Zebedee. And remember, stay curious
and keep seeking.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Also Called provides a space for honest conversations about the truth of who God is, who we are, and the relationships He wants us to have with Him, each other, the church, and ourselves. This episode was just the start of the conversation. Be sure to check the show notes for extra resources to go further. You can also find our social media sites to join the discussion. Don't miss our next chat by subscribing to our YouTube channel or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Also Called is part of Bible and Pop Culture, a crowd-funded nonprofit that allows us to provide our content to start great conversations for free. You can help us keep doing this by checking out BibleandPopCulture.com or AlsoCalled.org's Donate Subscribe buttons with a one-time gift, supporting us monthly, or sharing us with someone who might like the conversation. Thank you for being a part, and see you next conversation.